Over the last year or so, I've been building an incredibly unique addition to my house and almost doubling its size. I'm using boulders, trees, and lumber harvested from my property, and there's going to be many months worth of work condensed into this single video. We will be pouring the patio slab, pouring retaining walls, and hopefully getting the house enclosed, insulated, and dried in before winter hits. Well, it's a nice frosty morning here, and we're getting ready for concrete on the slab for the patio underneath the porch. So I'm gonna hop on a frosty teeny-weeny excavator here and do some digging for the slab. As I sit here doing this voiceover, it's springtime and it's a beautiful sunny day outside. But when we were doing this work on the house, it was late fall and we were trying to get everything done in time before winter hit and we could no longer work outside. Conveniently, for this bit of pouring the patio slab, we had a teeny tiny excavator that we bought for a overland video that we did earlier this year, and it made for a perfect tool for digging around the footings for the slab because the space around the house here is very, very limited. Once we had the footings dug for the edges of the slab to keep the frost from going under it, we brought in drain rock and leveled it out underneath the slab to make sure that the water doesn't build up underneath it. We're back from our last ridiculous road trip, and it's concrete day. As you can tell, we've got all of our forms up for the patio slab here. Got our screed boards set up, rebar. We went ahead and used up all the leftover bits of ICF insulated concrete form boards, all the leftovers from the house section there, and we just used them as forms for the slab here, and we'll just leave them there. It'll help keep it from freezing underneath the slab and cracking. So, a little bit of added protection there, and just, might as well use them up. We have the cap of wood on top just so that the top corner here that's exposed, you won't see the foam. I've got holes drilled in the rocks, rebars into the rocks so that it becomes all one piece and kind of, gets tied together. So
nothing's going to move after this.
Nope. Hopefully it's a little bit less hectic than our last pour, and it should be because we've got much cooler temperatures. This was late October, and it was kind of our last chance of the season to get this big slab poured before the freezing weather hit. And unfortunately, we couldn't get the concrete pumper that we usually use to come pump for us on this pour. So we had to just tailgate it off the end of the cement truck, which made it a little bit more work, but it wasn't the biggest slab ever, so we were able to manage. For pouring a slab like this, you have to kind of roughly spread out the concrete and then use what's called a screed board to spread it out relatively flat. For this one, I set up the runners or guides for the screed board. I just attached them to the house on one side and the forms on the other side so that it could all be hanging above the concrete. And then once we had a section screeded off flat, we did it in 3 sections, and then we'd move over to the next section. And then after it's all screeded, use the roller that pushes down all the aggregate and pebbles into the concrete. After the roller, you get out the bull float and smooth it all out. So the screed gets it kind of roughly the same level, then the bull float gets it nice and smooth, and then you gotta wait a few hours, and finally you can trowel it off and get it all polished.
Seems like this is going much better than the last pour.
Yeah, considerably. Once the patio slab was poured and cured, the last major outside thing I wanted to get done before the snow hit was pour the retaining walls on either side of the basement so that we could backfill around the foundation before winter. Good morning, geese. What do you think? Huh? Is it cold out here? How's the goose life today? Einstein, you are so slimy. Where have you been sliming? Oh yeah, that's a gross, slimy dog face. Another beautiful frosty fall morning out here. Seems like a great time to get some work done with a little teeny excavator under the house. Oh, Einstein's gonna help this morning. Hi, Einstein. You gonna help? All right, listen. You take that dirt there, and you put it over there. Got it? No? You just want pets. Okay. Work on that. Got some backfilled around there, but before I finish that, I'm gonna dig out a little bit more behind where the retaining wall is gonna be here, so we can put some rock, gravel in there for drainage behind the wall. James and Chris managed to get some of this done yesterday, so that's looking good there. We're gonna board form the front of the retaining wall. Just gonna go and then end on that rock, which is gonna look really cool. Backside's just gonna be plywood forms because you won't see the backside. This section of retaining wall on the west side of the house is going to serve two purposes. One, it's obviously going to hold back the dirt so that we can fill in against the foundation. And two, it's going to hold the overhang of the porch that's going to stick out 3 or 4 feet past the side of the house and be a little walkway to access the porch from ground level. Before we pour this retaining wall, I'm going to dig around behind it with the teeny Timu excavator and put in a drain so that the water will drain out from underneath it and not just soak in through the walls of the house. When we bought this tiny excavator for our ridiculous overland challenge for the main YouTube channel, I really didn't expect it to be anywhere near as useful as it's actually been. It's obviously kind of a piece of crap. It's on its second engine. It's rather difficult to operate smoothly because the controls are very rudimentary, and it's extremely easy to tip over. But when you have a really tight space and you need to get some work done, it really does do the job quite well. My counterweight, and also more filter.
You still working on the plumbing, Chris? Oh, you're doing electrical, not plumbing.
Yeah, plumbing's all done.
Oh, shower heads?
Go on, shower?
It's a little cold right now.
No, it's hot water.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nice having that thing around.
Yeah, it is. I really like it. Especially with the new engine. That made a huge difference. Just like playing on that thing, don't you?
Well, I mean, sure, it's fun, but also it's the only machine we have that would even fit over there.
I know, it's just perfect
Yeah.
for that, isn't it?
I mean, even your excavator's too big for that.
It wouldn't fit there.
You could get it over here and reach some of that, but it wouldn't fit.
Yeah, I couldn't reach the end.
No. Seeing as how it's not raining or snowing currently, and I got a couple hours before the other guys get here, I'm gonna do some cleanup from all the trees I took down earlier in the year to mill lumber for the house. I've got the top of a cedar tree here that needs to be cleaned up. And it's also a great excuse to try out this new to me chainsaw. We had our super old Atlas lathe that we used for like 5 years. It was super broken, super worn out. So I put it up on Marketplace, and somebody offered me a pretty nice chainsaw in trade. And I was like, hey, a good chainsaw takes up a lot less space than a crusty old lathe and is a lot more useful. I figured it was a good excuse to try it out and see how it does. And also, you know, get some stuff cleaned up before the snow hits. I've lived on this property now for going on 27 years. And you'd think that maybe after that many years of cleaning up the forest and cutting firewood, I'd get sick of it. But to this day, it's still one of my favorite things to do is go out in the woods on a cold fall or spring morning, cut some firewood, clean up the forest, and have a big fire. We learned our lesson when we did the board form on the rest of it, not having ties. So this time we just did some really basic wire ties, tying the two sides of the form together. But yeah, that's the retaining wall on this side, ends on this nice big boulder. The bit here on top is flat, and it goes out just far enough for the little strip of walkway porch there. That's all ready to go, and then over here on this side, notice there's a big hole in it here that's kind of the shape of a door. Well, that's because there's eventually going to be a pantry back there, buried under the ground. Or not a pantry, a root cellar, that's the word. We figured we'd pour in the doorway there. We're adding on this door for a future root cellar because my wife is very into growing food and preserving it, which is awesome because we get to eat super delicious, fresh, healthy food. But ironically, I actually started building a root cellar here many, many years ago when I was a teenager because my mom always wanted a root cellar as well. When this property was my mom's property, I started building a root cellar, and I actually dug a big hole with the tiny little tractor that we had and got about as far as starting on some concrete forms, and then never got any farther because, you know, I was like 15 or something. We're finally getting a root cellar on the property here, and the idea behind a root cellar is that you're using the temperature of the earth to keep your fruits and vegetables fresh without any power or climate control other than just using the actual temperature of the ground. There's a lot to it that I haven't really researched yet, but basically you dig a big hole in the ground and you pour some concrete to make some walls, and then you have a room that stays basically the same temperature year round. And it's not good for keeping everything, but it keeps things like potatoes, carrots, apples, that sort of stuff. It'll keep it fresh without any added climate control pretty much all year. Well, we have windows. See? Cleaning them. No, I'm joking. The windows are over there. But we are preparing to install them. So we're staining the jams here that Chris and James put in yesterday. And then the windows can go in. And then we'll be a little bit closer to being warm in here, which is good because Chris complains about it nonstop, despite the fact that it's like, I don't know, 45 degrees this morning.
It's warmer than it usually is this time of year.
He's standing over there over the heater going, "Oh, I'm cold!"
Yeah, I saw him in the shop this morning, and he's like, "I'm cold."
Finally got around to staining and installing this post this morning. That looks pretty nice, huh? No more bouncy floor corner. One little bit at a time, we're closing in on it. I designed this part of the addition with windows all the way around the corner, primarily because that's the direction that most of the view is, but it's also the south and west side, so it's where we get a lot of nice sun exposure during the winter months. And with the massive overhang and the porch roof, the great thing about this design is that in our northern hemisphere here, in the winter months, the sun is at a very low angle, low to the horizon, and the sun will come in through the windows and warm up the house. But in the summer months, the sun is beyond directly overhead. It's actually moved north a bit. What that means is that the sun won't come directly in the windows due to the overhangs in the summer, and it'll keep the house a lot cooler. Concrete time. Hopefully our last pour of this project, pretty much. Our dilemma is we're gonna see if the truck can actually get the concrete into there. The elevation difference here is potentially gonna be a problem, but we're about to find out. This is our fourth concrete pour for this project. Luckily, it's also our smallest one. It's just 2 little retaining walls. What could possibly go wrong?
We will be sharing more information on this soon, but we were broken down in the middle of the desert when my new favorite free app came to save the day.
Wait, is regular 580 something?
595 it says over there.
Upside is a free app that shows you cashback opportunities near you. Even out here in the middle of the desert, we got 14 cents per gallon cash back on fuel. But it also includes grocery stores and restaurants. There are over 100,000 participating locations across the US and over $1 million being earned by Upside users each week. And this is real cash back sent to your account, no weird point system, anything like that. Upside has given back $1 billion to its users. To find out how much you could earn, download the free Whatside app and use our code BONUSBOLTS to get an extra 25 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank of gas using Upside. When you guys support the sponsors, it really supports us, so definitely check it out. Now, let's get back to it.
The pour for the first retaining wall went super smoothly. It was easy to access, small, and the only real challenge here was getting the concrete vibrated enough to get it all the way down into the corners and avoid too many air pockets. Especially because of the tapered edge, we had to spend a lot of time knocking on it to get the concrete to slide down in there. The second pour was going great until it wasn't. It's gone. It's not going anywhere, huh? You would think we would have learned our lesson after all of the difficulties we had with bracing on the first board-formed wall pours of this project. And in a sense, we did, because on this one we used wire ties to tie the two sides of the forms together. But what we failed to do on this particular section is tie all the boards together and make it one section. Effectively, each individual board was holding its own weight, and without them tied together, each wire was able to break one at a time, and then the whole thing gave up. Whereas on the back side, it was all plywood, so it was one piece. And once again, the teeny excavator came in handy to help brace up these concrete forms so they didn't blow out again. I don't know if I'm going to be doing any more board form concrete, but if I do, I'll just go ridiculously overkill on the bracing, because this pour was once again a huge pain, a lot of running around shoveling concrete, and then an end result that was definitely not as good as it could have been. But all things considered, with the form blowing out completely towards the end of the pour, we were able to scramble it back together and get it to come out halfway decent.
James to the rescue for part 2.
Luckily, I have this stored in my place.
Because of how much the forms bulged and the fact that we lost a good bit of concrete out on the ground, we had to hand mix a few bags in the bucket of the skid steer to finish off this last retaining wall. Luckily, James, who helped with a lot of this project, lives just up the road, and he had a bunch left over from the house that he's building, so he was able to just run up there and be back in just a few minutes so we could get it all in there before everything's set up.
I guess that's pretty good. Using a very loose term of the word good, but you know. Better than it could have been. A lot worse than it should have been.
So pretty good.
The next morning, when we pulled the boards off the wall, the first retaining wall turned out really nice. Just a few little air pockets here and there. But you can see the benefit of doing the board form concrete this way is that you get that texture and grain of each individual board in the concrete, and it's a really nice pattern that just stays there forever.
Well, this wall turned out pretty decent.
Yeah, this side did. Feel it. Put your hand on there and feel it.
Still warm? It is still kind of warm.
Yeah, really warm. But before we took the boards off this morning, it was really warm.
Removing the form boards off of the second retaining wall was a lot less satisfying.
All right, how'd it turn out, Chris?
Real good. Looks great. I like the way it looks.
Looks good from here.
Didn't get down in there. That's what I was trying to keep Ethan from seeing it, so I wouldn't get yelled at right away.
Just pack it with a little mud.
Yeah, right?
What? Am I not supposed to look at it?
Oh no, it's fine. Go back to work. It's just fine here. I'm just scratching my back a little bit.
Uh-huh. Sure you are.
Come on, I'm just scratching my back.
Yeah, how'd it turn out? Oh, good. Yeah, that's what I was imagining when I looked underneath there. I could see in here, and I was like, that didn't flow.
But it did pretty good here. I mean, coming back, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I don't know. We'll see when we get higher up, because that was still mostly pumped down there.
I mean, for having a huge blowout here.
Yeah, considering how, it could have been just not poured at all.
Yeah.
A few sections of the board form on this second wall actually turned out rather nice, but the edge completely failed to fill in because the concrete was already setting up by the time we got it back into the forms. So Chris set up a bit of form on this edge and refilled in the corner with concrete so that at least it wasn't completely missing. The result didn't look the best, but it'll do the job. And at the end of the day, it's a retaining wall on the outside of a patio with a door to a root cellar, not, I don't know, piano or a Ferrari or something.
Well, yesterday we got all the form stripped off of that retaining wall, and I kind of started backfilling it but didn't get very far. So that's what I'm going to work on this morning, is backfilling that, the skid steer, and just generally, shaping this all up and getting it in a decent state before the snow hits. Obviously this is the one we had the blowout on, so it kind of had issues, but Chris kind of reformed and added onto this, so we'll see how that turned out here in a little bit when we pull the forms off. But start on backfilling that, and then once we get the rest of the forms stripped off here, I'll backfill some of this, although with the door for a future pantry, there won't be a whole lot of backfilling until we, you know, do the future pantry. I keep calling it a pantry. Future root cellar, that's what that is.
It's always a good day when I can wake up in the morning and run the skid steer for a couple hours. So backfilling these retaining walls was a satisfying process, especially because throughout this whole house process, the hillside next to and below the house has been constantly being reshaped and piled with dirt and repiled and reshaped again. So it's nice to finally see it get all smoothed out and looking decent again after most of a year of being all torn up and just random piles of stuff everywhere.
I'm pretty happy with how it's leveled out here. Took a while because I had to kind of scrounge around for enough decent dirt to fill in all the low spots. Not too steep. All the water will flow away from the house. That's the most important part.
It's a nice day to work on a deck, at least if it's a covered deck like this one. Yeah, some of these boards turned out really nice. Just beautiful cedar. It's a little hard to tell on camera here, but I went with like a 3/16 chamfer for the edges. I think it looks nicer than a roundover, and that just keeps the edges from being like sharp and splintery.
I milled all these cedar boards for the deck earlier in the year, and they've had enough time to dry that they're more or less dry enough, so we're gonna plane them all down to the same thickness before we put them down on the porch. Here I have the choice to either put the boards down and then stain them, or what I'm actually gonna go with is stain them and then put them down, because that allows me to stain all four sides of the board easily. It wastes a little bit of stain, but not enough to matter. As I've probably mentioned earlier in this project, it's incredibly satisfying going from cutting down a tree all the way to a finished product board that you're going to use on your house, especially when it's something super visual and exposed like the boards for the deck. And Western red cedar, which is the native type of cedar we have around here, it's a really beautiful wood, especially with a little bit of a stain to lock in the color. I used a fully transparent deck stain on this, so it's really just a oil to protect the wood. It's I've always preferred oil-based penetrating stains to like polyurethane or, you know, like a hard plastic coating on the outside, because over time any finish will eventually degrade, but the oil-based penetrating stains like this, they don't ever crack or peel. They just eventually dry out and you can clean it up and add another coat without having to completely refinish the whole thing.
Hey, look at that. All the boards are stained. These ones are still drying. Basically, everything that's vertical still drying. These ones are dry. Those are the ones I stained last night. And those ones over there sitting on the half of Ferrari. Because doesn't everybody store their drying stained deck boards on their half of Ferrari? That's normal, right?
Right out here, Bjorn. Right! Gooses! Hello, gooses. What do you think of this snow? Huh? What do you think of all the snow, gooses? Honk a honk? Nope, no honkas.
These first two boards on the deck were by far the most difficult because I had to notch both ends of them around the posts, especially the first one because it was one full-length board and had two very irregular notches around the round posts, but I'm super happy with how it came out.
First couple of boards are looking really nice. And this deer is spectating. Deer ain't care. Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. Tasty berries. Yeah, Steven, how you like this around that post there?
Ooh, you spent a little time on that one.
I did, yes, I spent a lot of time on that one. And that's on both ends of the board, so I had to make both of them.
Did you have any miscuts?
Nope.
Wow.
I just did it a very small amount at a time, and then I had the grinder with the flap disc for like fine tuning. So I just, you know, fit it, take a little bit off, fit it. Yeah, you saw that clip I sent of the deer, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was just right there.
There was a deer just hanging out there munching on those berries while I was working here. I was sitting right here, and the deer was just nom 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 nom,
Really?
looking at me. I was talking to it, and it was just like, eh.
I'm not scared of you.
Not scared of you. See, Steven? Look at this. Triple purpose. Also spaces from this edge over to the screws on the side. For the end seams here.
Yeah, that thing saved you a lot of time.
Yeah, it took me like maybe 10 minutes to make it. And then... Did you arc joint it? This?
Yeah.
No, it's just two pieces of scrap welded together.
Oh, I already had the slot.
Yeah, that's just a piece of scrap I had laying around.
I thought maybe you arc jointed.
No.
The downside to milling all of your own lumber for a project like this is that if you run out in the fall, you can't just go mill some more because it won't dry until the weather gets warm again. So I'm going to have to live with half of a deck until spring when I can mill some more lumber and have it actually dry enough to be able to use.
Well, the insulation showed up just in time, seeing as how it's looking rather wintry out here. Just unloaded all of this from the back of the truck. Believe it or not, all of these bundles were in the back of my Tundra. It was about 10 feet tall. Today's insulation day. I even got my limited edition Rich Rebuilds kitchen knife to use for cutting the rock wool.
I chose to use rock wool insulation for this project because I've heard really good things about it. It's a little less itchy than fiberglass, and supposedly it's better in a few ways. It's naturally mold resistant, fire resistant, just really good insulation. It's a bit more expensive than fiberglass, but I figured it was worth it for this project.
You ever used rock wool, Steven?
No, I haven't.
I guess you never really did that much insulation anyway, did you?
No, I avoided it at all costs.
Well, this still isn't my favorite job, but it's way less of a pain than fiberglass.
I went with R23 in the walls and R38 in the ceilings, which is about as much as you can get for the thickness that we have and is also well above average for insulation. With the insulation in, we can get on to everybody's favorite part of construction, drywall hanging. Actually, hanging the drywall, I don't mind too much. It's the mudding and taping and sanding that I'm really not a huge fan of. But as much as drywall is one of my least favorite parts of construction, it is still extremely satisfying because it really starts to feel like it's all coming together once the interior of the house starts to look like something.
Finally got around to manufacturing the last step here this morning. So I'm just about to find out if it fits. Wow. Something is very, very wrong with my measurements. One of them's right. This one's off by an entire whole width. I inched myself on the measure, not on the mark. Oh. I marked it right, but I looked at the wrong side of the... So I gotta cut that out, move it over an inch. So before I get going on the Ferrari, I'm gonna go ahead and re-drill this hole where it should be, and then go do a test fit, because it does kind of run into the edge of this. But if I only drill the hole big enough for the bolt and not the sleeve that I have welded in there, it might just clear, and then I can test fit before I go to all the trouble of cutting that out and putting it back and all of that.
This last step for the metal floating stairs is something that I could have done many, many months ago, but I just kept putting it off because it wasn't that important and I kept forgetting about it. Now I'm finally going to install it, and when I went to measure and drill the holes, I messed up, so I welded one of the tubes that I put in there in entirely the wrong place, but it's close enough that it'll be plenty strong to just drill a hole next to it.
If you're wondering why there's pipe welded to an axe, it's because I was messing around with forging in the wood stove years ago, and I just welded the piece of pipe onto it as a handle to forge with.
When I built this step, I welded end plates in both ends and then drilled holes and welded tubes all the way through so that it would increase the rigidity where the bolts are rather than just crush and bend, because the entire step is cantilevered out in space. And unlike the rest of the steps that are embedded in concrete, this one's just bolted on top. So it's relying on those 2 bolts to stay rigid. And then, actually, many weeks ahead of schedule, the doors arrived. So shout out to H at Hilton Glass and Door, who actually grew up about a couple hundred yards from this house.
Thinking for all of this scrap and trash, we ought to back the MTV over here and just chuck it all in there and go take it to the dump. That'd be fun. I had to add it's more than 8 feet to the top, so we added a little strip here. And then notching around this board form wall was, a little bit interesting, but it turned out pretty good. We have a door.
I came for some inspection here, you know.
Yeah. You didn't even know I was here.
Yeah, because the fire wasn't going nothing.
Well, yeah, that's because I'm working over here. Hello, gooses! Gooses! They were so excited when I let them out this morning. They went flying down the driveway.
Did they?
Well, not literally flying, but just
Flapping
running and
away,
flapping.
yeah.
And then the one with the messed up wing was in the back with one wing out going, "Wait for me, guys! Wait for me!" Well, over the weekend, I got this part of the house included in the house. So I got all the doors in. This one's to replace the front door so they all match. And I took this window out and put it downstairs. So everything is now dried in, insulated, and closed. Now we're working on reworking all of this. This is going to remain a pass-through from the kitchen. There'll be a counter here, pass-through, reframing all of this, because we want to make this just a post width here instead of a whole wall section. So rather than doing all that, reframing it, and then re-drywalling it and all of that, we're going to run a beam from there over to here, and then a post underneath it. That'll all meet up and match up with this beam. So this one will support temporarily back here off the floor, and then we'll cut it off flush, bring the other beam in beside it, and then put some hangers there and bolt it all together. That's 14 foot. Yeah, that's plenty big for the beam. A nice soggy and still somewhat green hemlock log. You might call it a hemlog.
I was just talking about the downsides of milling your own lumber for things like deck boards, because if you run out in the wrong time of year, you can't mill more. The upside is that if you need a beam and you didn't think about it and plan ahead, you need a beam on a random Tuesday, you can just go outside and make one.
You have any use for those pieces?
Firewood. I mean, unless you want them for something.
Nope.
I've never done it for myself, nor will I, but I've spent many, many, many hours when I was younger peeling those and then putting them on a house to make it look like a log house as siding. Personally, it's a ton of work and it's rather tacky in my opinion.
Obviously, it's always more ideal to let your lumber dry and cure for, up to many months. In this case, it's probably not going to warp all that much as it dries because it's basically the whole tree. The thinner the board you make, the harder it is to keep it straight. I mean, that's a very oversimplified version of it, but the point is we need a beam, we need it today, and we have a sawmill, so I can just go out and mill it and then bring it straight into the house and let it dry for, at least a day or two before we put it up. This particular beam happens to come from a very large hemlock tree right at the edge of where we store all of the junk and parts from all the things we build. Hemlock makes for a nice, strong beam. It's not the strongest wood we have around, but it's definitely a lot stronger than grand fir, spruce, cedar. It's on the upper end of the strength of trees we have around here.
Our soggy beam has been drying for 1 day, which is better than none days. And at least it's not Monday. Wow, that was a dumb rhyme. We got everything about prepped to put that beam up. Basically, we just have to put this post under the ridge beam so that we can cut this out. And we have to get this piece off right here. And then that beam's pretty much ready to go in. Doing as much weight reduction on it as possible. I got all the ends cut. I've also been cleaning up and shaving off the bark and stuff. So much weight reduction.
It's kind of funny tearing apart this section of house around what used to be the kitchen window and redoing it, because not that many years ago, I redid all of this section myself when I first remodeled the house. This particular floor joist that we're removing is actually original to the house, but this whole section of wall I reframed for a larger window and furred it out from a 2x4 thickness to a 2x6 thickness for better insulation and just to make it match the rest of all the newer construction that I was doing at the time. But anyway, it's kind of funny to go back and tear out work that I did just, 6 or 8 years before. It's all worth it because the end result will be so much better.
We can just get a couple of us on this end. We can also get like back here a little bit so we can have the extra height.
Yeah.
I'll help push it
Do the best
that
one.
way. Okay, yeah, you just get on that end and push when we say push. I think this end, well, let's just start with 2 people and see how that goes. If we need a third or fourth.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Okay.
Yep. Edwin, this is where your notch shortness could come in handy.
All right. What I was gonna do, something like this, and put it right here, just as a safety.
Sure, do that.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Okay. Edward, you can help me over here then. Yeah, stand in.
That's it. Block and hammer.
Wow, that's nowhere near as bad as I thought it might be.
Oh, there's a screw there too. Or a stub of a nail. Actually, it's a nail.
The upstairs portion of the house and the inside end of the new dining room ridge beam all sit on this beam that we're putting in now. So we had to get creative with blocking up the existing structure to support it while we could cut out what we needed to cut out and then put in the beam to hold it all up.
Sounded like it's in. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Ooh, that looks good.
Yeah, not bad.
This beam, despite being rather large, needs a post in the middle of it to help it bear all the weight of the upper half of the house. It could look cool to have no post and just have it entirely open, but that would require a much larger beam, which would mean we'd lose headroom. And I think a post here in the middle would be a visually appealing thing anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, last night I finished cutting in the switch box into the post and all the holes for wires. And then in a brief interlude between cutting trees out of the road this morning, James and I got the post installed, so the weight's back on it. It's looking pretty good. I think I'm gonna like chamfer around over this edge so it doesn't look silly where it meets the waned edge of the beam, but that can happen later.
We did actually manage to get the roof, the walls, and even all of the insulation and doors before winter properly hit. So that's a huge win. So stay tuned to find out what we do next, because we're far from finished with creative, unique concepts in this house edition. And thank you all for watching, because it's been a lot of fun sharing the process of adding on to this house.